It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, was Biker number 2. Brand new stuff from Brant Bjork and the Low Desert Punk Band. And the new album is called TAO of the Devil. And the devil himself is on the phone. Of course, it's Mr. Brant Bjork. Brant, how are you, man?
I'm good.
Excellent.
How are you doing?
Excellent, man. Well, dude, I gotta tell you, man, I am loving, and I do mean loving, the new record, TAO of the Devil, man. It is so good, but it's so different than the last one that you put out, the Black Flower Power record. It just, I'm going to tell you what I think, and then you tell me where I'm dead right or dead wrong. To me, it just feels a lot more laid back and a lot more jammy than the other one, than Black Flower Power, which just felt a lot more intense. You know, was it different this time, or is it just me reading into it?
Well, it's different every time. You know, every record I've done is unique to its own, and it represents where I'm at in a particular time and place. Okay. And with Black Power Flower, I was feeling that kind of energy, and that was the creative process, and the goal was to capture that energy and then have that record represent that vibe. That vibe. And this record is obviously, you know, an extension of where I'm at and what I'm feeling right now, you know. And yeah, you know, it's kind of you know, when we started the creative process for this new record, TAO of the Devil, there was a sense of relief in terms of just kind of arriving at a new energy where I could just kind of get back to relaxing and grooving and just kind of, you know, kicking back a little bit more.
Sure. Well, without question, man, my favorite tune on the record is the Green. That song is just cool all the way around. No other way to put it. It's one of those fun songs that you could just kind of see playing every Saturday night and just kind of relaxing to, you know, or just getting into your groove. Talk a little bit about that song and how that one came together.
That was just, to me, that's just kind of a bluesy, like a classic American blues riff that I kind of stumbled upon when I was in Europe about a year and a half ago. And, you know, I was just in my hotel room and it just kind of popped out of me, and it just wouldn't go away.
Okay.
So I just kind of worked with, and that's the result of our coming to terms with each other.
Sure. Is that normally how you put songs together? Do they just kind of come to you, or do you actually have to sit down and write?
No, I don't. Well, I don't have a normal process. You know, I don't have a normal process.
Okay.
It's just all about being in tune with your muse or your inspiration or that moment where something just pops out, and then working with it. You know, for me, it's about, you know, I have ideas, and then there's ideas that just come out of me naturally. And I just kind of, you know, have to learn how to just kind of, you know, nurture those ideas. And it's kind of a give and take. You know, I want to try and control it, but sometimes it has its own ideas and has a life of its own, and you just got to kind of make friends with it. That's all.
Sure. As somebody that not only can sing, but plays a lot of, you know, plays basically every instrument, do you have to keep a recorder with you all the time so that if you think of a good riff or you know, an interesting beat or something, that you can record it to keep it, or do you not even bother with that?
I'd say I let a lot of it go to the gods, but I used to carry with me a little mini tape recorder years back in the day, of course, but now with the you know, these modern conveniences, you know, like the iPhone has its little recorder, which is of course I've got quite a few ideas in there, so it is convenient to just throw the phone down and capture something every once in a while, for sure.
Sure, definitely. Now, Brant, clearly you are one of the legendary figures in the quote-unquote stoner rock or stoner metal scene, you know, given, you know, your work with Caius and Fu Manchu and et cetera, et cetera. Does that serve you well as you move forward, or does that hurt you because everybody always wants to compare whatever you do to your past?
Well, I mean, I choose to look at it as something that serves me, you know. It wouldn't do me any good to look at my past and look at it as a burden. I mean, my past is what it is. Mm-hmm. I'm content with what I've done in my past. And you know, and it's just who I was and what I accomplished and what I did. And you know, and I'm here right now because of my past. So yeah, it only serves me, and I don't let it define me. Sure. But I have no problems trying to run away from it, you know.
Right, certainly. Yeah, I mean, and it's weird because some people, and I know you know this, some people, they've had some success or some notoriety somewhere, and they absolutely try to run from it like it's the plague.
Yeah. Yeah, or cling on to it and try to, like, you know, milk it for dear life, you know. And it's like, not to suggest that either or is wrong, but it's just not how I go about, you know, with my approach to my music and the career that relates, you know, that's relating to it. I just keep, you know, I love music. I'm very grateful to have a life in music, and I just move forward with my inspiration and my creativity. Sure. I just move forward, man.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go backwards one more time just because I didn't get to talk to you on this record, but 2013, you definitely released what was my album of the year, which was the Vistacino record, the Peace record. You know, it seemed like that was going forward, then it went away. You know, I read a bunch of stuff, and I don't want to re-dig up Bad Past as far as the band dissolving, but were you okay with that band just going away, or did you feel like there was more that kind of got left on the table there?
Well, I mean, it was upsetting, but for some very specific reasons that are really personal issues that is totally unnecessary to go into.
Sure.
And everything's perfectly fine now. But yeah, of course, so there's always a little bit of disappointment, but really the goal was, and it was a difficult goal because there were a lot of outside, situations that were non-musical that were making that record a very difficult record to make.
Okay.
But you keep your eyes on the prize, and that's, reminding me what this is all about. And that's just about making music. Mm-hmm. That's why I love music, like I said, and this is what I have to do in order to make the music that I feel I need and want to make. And with Vistacino, the Peace record, we did it,
Mm-hmm.
It was all about making great music, and I feel like we accomplished that. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely agree with you on that one. That one never leaves my phone. It plays at least once a week. It's so good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, moving into today, Brant, certainly you've built now, this is the second record officially with the Low Desert Punk Band. Who are these guys that you're playing with now, and how has that gelled together as a band versus a Brant solo project?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as a solo artist, I had no master plan coming into, being a solo artist. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I kind of fell into solo artistry as an accident.
Okay.
I got here and figured out that this was indeed my reality, and I was going to run with it. I start to look at it and say, okay, hey, I can put a band together. I can create records on my own and play all the instruments and do all the tracks myself. There's a tremendous amount of freedom that I had, and I certainly have taken advantage of that freedom over the years. But really, one of the exciting things for me being a solo artist, ironically enough, is that I have the ability to put myself into the band situation again, which is what I love. I love the camaraderie of being in a band. I love the idea of collaborating on ideas. Mm-hmm. And so I'm actually taking advantage of for lack of a better word, my power as a solo artist in going out and finding musicians and assembling a band a dream band, if you will. Okay. And that's what this band is. You know, Ryan Good on drums, Dave Dinsmore on bass, and Bubba Dupree on guitar. These are musicians that I love as people and as artists. And when, you know, we work really hard at developing our natural chemistry and you know, and being conscious of what that natural chemistry is. And this record reflects that. You know, we wanted to capture the spirit of what this band can do as a collective, and we did it.
Absolutely.
And when we go out and perform on stage, we show people what it is, and when it's exciting, it's fun for us, and I think it's fun for people who are there as well.
Sure. Now I'm curious for you specifically, you personally. You know, as we said before, you're a multi-instrumentalist. You can play drums, you can play guitar. I'm sure you can play bass. You know, when you have that kind of skill or creativity or talent or whatever you want to label it, does it make it difficult in the creative process as a band? Because you'll look at, you know, the drum part, you'll be like, no, you should play it this way, just because that's how you would do it. You know, does it make it difficult to kind of step back and let the other guys do their thing, or are you just comfortable with, okay, I'm going to do my part and I'm going to let everybody do theirs?
It was in the beginning a little bit. I think people like myself, that have visions and ideas, there is a controlling nature to that.
Sure.
But I think the challenge is, as I was just kind of mentioning, is that, like, you know, I learned that to get the best out of a particular musician is to allow him to be the musician that he is. And that's exciting. And then you start to discover that even though they're doing something that you wouldn't do, maybe they're doing something that serves the band more, or doing something that is just even more exciting than what you would do. And that's what I love about the band collaboration. So yes, in the beginning, I might've been more controlling just because I was more naive to the situation of being a formal band leader from a solo standpoint.
Sure.
But over the years, I've learned to you know, relinquish that control and let things happen organically, and the results have been much better, for sure, for me.
Absolutely. Now, Brant, I am, as I told you before we started the interview, I'm an old school fan, and I've been, you know, I'm 47 years old right now, and I've been listening to this type of music pretty much as from the moment I first started hearing it. You know, I'm in Cleveland, and used to go and see Red Giant play a lot. Used to go see, you know, the various bands that were here, and then other bands would come in. The one thing that I find to be much, much, much better now, which makes it a whole lot easier to appreciate this kind of music, is the ability now to record kind of the live sound of these bands. Because what you always had in 15, 20 years ago was either recordings that sounded like shit because they just didn't record well, or recordings that were so maxed out that you couldn't really appreciate what everybody was doing. And it seems like it's finally come together where you can capture the raw sound and at the same time have it be crisp. You know, for you, do you A, see that, and B, are you happy that it has kind of progressed that way?
A very interesting concept. You've got some pretty rad insight there, and that's obviously rooted in just all the years that you've been around in this particular, you know, rock movement. Yes. I mean, my idea would be that, like, you know, in the early 90s, the four bands that kind of were the legs of the table, the cornerstones, if you will, you know, Monster Magnet and Sleep and Fu Manchu and Caius. I think people need to remember that those four bands signed fairly big record deals that allowed them to record in, you know, really good rock and roll studios with arguably top engineers and producers.
Right.
So the foundation of this musical movement was kind of solidified with a pretty good record standard, and It didn't last long because that was the end of the golden years of the music business, if you will.
Right.
So there wasn't much, for younger bands to put together for themselves, in the coming years after that. But those, even myself, I mean, speaking for myself as a solo artist, when I started doing my solo work, I had to make do with the kind of studio gear that I could afford.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't have big budgets and tour support like I did in Fu Manchu and Caius and stuff.
Right.
So I literally went to like the old school kind of like punk rock, basics.
Right.
And that makes that some pretty raw recordings. I remember one time I gave an early solo record to a person who was higher up in the business, and thinking I could probably enlighten them to help me out, and they said, "Hey man, that's an awesome demo." I was like, "Dude, that's my record, man." So yeah, it was, and I'm sure it was like that for many bands who were interested in pursuing this style of music. And so you're right. We've come a long way. It's 20 years, 25 years later. And the bands that I hear playing this kind of rock today, things have clearly developed in their favor, because I'm hearing some really, really tasty, some really good, inspiring recordings for sure.
Absolutely, man. Well, one of those inspiring recordings is this brand new record, TAO of the Devil. It is Brant Bjork and the Low Desert Punk Band. Now, Brant, I know you're going to Europe here shortly. Following that, will there be a U.S. tour, or is that in 2017, or not determined yet?
Well, we're definitely pursuing U.S. dates. Nothing is in stone as of right now, although I do have an L.A. date and a San Francisco date at the end of this month. Okay. But we are certainly going to do more shows to support this record in the North American market. Sure. We don't know exactly where and when, but it will happen.
Excellent. Well, as a tradition on the show, man, we always wrap up the interviews by having the artist pick a track from the new record and tell us a story about it. So what should we wrap this one up with?
Why don't we just go with Stacked, which is the third track on the record. We released a video a couple weeks ago for that track, and the video was a lot of fun. We shot it out at Joshua Tree, not far from the studio where we recorded that particular track and the whole record in general. And we had a good time on the shoot, and I dig the track. And so why don't we just roll with that?
All right. Well, let's do it right now. This is Stacked right here on your Classic Metal Show.